Jalen Milroe broke my brain in terms of a prospect to a point that the original intention of this video was to do a top 5 rankings of the upcoming quarterbacks for the 2025 NFL draft. And because I had so much to say on Jalen Milroe alone after evaluating his tape, we're going to do a 5-part series going through each of my top 5 quarterbacks. And by the 5th one, you will see my comprehensive ranking for the top 5. And the way that these are going to be structured is basically 2 parts. The first part is going to be diving into the scheme of the respective player. Reason being, it's important to understand what's their bread and butter. What did their OCs ask them to do? How many times were they asked to develop across the entire field? Is it just continuous one reads, RPO looks? Or were they having to evaluate the entirety of the defense and be able to make a smart decision? I think that's important, especially as you make the transition to the NFL, where college offenses, sure, they've adapted some of the principles, but you're not getting a college offense like a Lane Kiffin, like a Tennessee, all the way into the NFL. It just doesn't exist and it won't have success. So with that in mind, what is that jump going to look like? And do I believe that player can develop as time progresses? Is it worth taking a first round, a second round investment into that player? Then the second part, where we actually pull up the film. I'll pull up a bunch of plays from about 2 to 3 games. I can't show you every single game where we would be here for hours, but I do want to show you the weaknesses, some of the red flags, and why they're red flags, especially as they translate to the NFL level. And then the flip side, what are some of the strengths? What are some glimmers of hope of a potential superstar quarterback? Because by no means am I looking for the perfect quarterback prospect, especially not with this draft class. So are we swinging for upside? Is this a project player? Why are they a project? Or is this a high-level starter but doesn't really have that ceiling that you would be looking for in a franchise guy to go head-to-head with a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes? Because that's what every single team is striving to at least have a guy that can level the playing field because of how important the quarterback position is. And there's no better way than to start with Jalen Milroe, someone that has been super polarizing because of that super high ceiling, but did he ever get close to it? Were there moments at his time at Alabama where you saw what he could be as a comprehensive quarterback, or is he just a mobile threat, someone that could play a different position as some have suggested during the Senior Bowl? What is Jalen Milroe as a prospect, in my opinion, is something we are going to answer right now. So what were some of the concepts that Kalen DeBoer implemented after Nick Saban left to make Milroe's life easier? What were his strengths and weaknesses that he was trying to double down on the strengths or avoid some of the weaknesses is something we're about to show. But I also want to take a moment and just say, like, when he was comfortable and Milroe was playing at a high level, though it was sporadic and though we only saw it in little moments, we're talking about the best quarterback in the country. I wouldn't be spending this much time if it wasn't for a player who has the ceiling of a Jalen Milroe. I mean, we're talking about an incredible arm, great rushing ability, and that's a pair that you don't get often. Obviously, so many players have the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. I mean, Anthony Richardson has the potential to be the #1 quarterback in the NFL. By no means is he close to it, but if everything was to go right, that's what his potential can be. That's why teams make these big swings. And so it's whether or not you're willing to take the risk on a guy like Milroe and be able to elevate him enough and develop him enough because you have the potential to have a top 10 quarterback who can level the playing field. So let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Milroe and see how big of a gap it is to hit that ceiling and what Alabama did in the vacuum of just this season to try to mitigate some of the risks and excel the strengths. The obvious strength is the rushing ability and the arm talent. First things first with the rushing ability, I would say the rushing style is a blend of what we see with Jaden Daniels, which to me is much more of a north-south type of runner, not running through people, but he's not someone that is just super shifty and tries to move around players. It's avoiding hits and be able to get downfield when you have the opportunity. Then on the flip side, Lamar Jackson, who is a little bit more shifty, especially in his earlier years and coming out of college, and is super twitchy. I would say Milroe's just right in between that. I don't think he's as good of a rusher as the two, though it is his strength. I see the rushing style as a blend between the two. Then the second thing, the arm talent, the ability to throw on a frozen rope 50 yards downfield on the money. Does it happen every single time? No. Does he know when to control it, when to throw with touch, when to throw with an absolute rocket? No. Those are some of the weaknesses. but it's the fact that he has the arm talent, and when it's on and when he can actually throw the ball on time and anticipate a player getting open, it's some of the most incredible plays you'll see all draft cycle. But then the very next rep, he'll overthrow a crosser 10 feet above the wide receiver's head who's wide open. That could be a 40-yard gain downfield. And so case in point, that goes to the weaknesses. I think one of the biggest ones I saw in film is Jalen Milroe tends to wait for the players to get open. That's a big red flag. That's a big no-no in my book, especially as you go to the NFL where everything is sped up. You cannot wait for someone to get open. It's kind of like in the stock market, man, when everyone has made money and you're just now investing, you're already losing. You're already late to the party. If you're waiting for a wide receiver to get open, they're not going to be open by the time you're throwing that football. Sometimes if you have the arm talent, it can mitigate that risk and you're able to get into an even tighter window, because by the time you saw the wide receiver, they're already being closed in by a cornerback that is much more faster than you're used to, especially at the collegiate level. Because time and time again, I just saw whether it was a dig route over the middle, right as the wide receiver's breaking is when you're supposed to throw that ball, especially if you anticipate them to get open. You could see the opening before it happens. But as he's breaking, and I'll show you a couple times, when he's making that break, he's waiting to see that big crimson jersey to be open. By the time he throws it, a player can reach in and be able to pick the ball off. It's either a deflection, one of the two, that's a negative play. Another weakness I've seen with Jalen Milroe time and time again is the dude just gets baited and he'll stare down a wide receiver. I think the best example, a lot of people think of the Oklahoma pick six. That's a great example. I mean, he is staring down the outside boundary wide receiver. The linebacker literally just follows his eyes all the way to the ball. Pick six. You just can't afford those plays. And lastly, I think the dude just takes a ton of sacks. Yes, the Alabama offensive line was struggling a ton over the past 2 years. There were some really bad instances. I think there's also some blame to be had on a guy like Milroe. There'd be many times where he's scrambling to a side of the field where there's maybe one wide receiver on that side of the field, and you're not going to throw cross body because that's one of the biggest cardinal sins of football. Then there was many times where he didn't have a quick check down to throw to. He just kind of got lost in no man's land. And whether you want to blame it on DeBoer, whether you want to blame it on Milroe for not at least having an option and being able to see, hey, there's about like 7 defenders at the line of scrimmage right now. I might want to invest in potentially a swing route to my running back or a quick little check down because maybe they just send everyone and not everyone can be blocked. That's something that I saw time and time again, and he did hold on to the ball a lot. But I will give him credit. He was able to stay in the pocket, especially those times when he was like, I'm not going to just go run. I'm going to stick in and throw the football. He wasn't antsy. He wasn't dancing around the pocket. But then 2 drives later, he'd be antsy moving around the pocket. Getting him into rhythm is so crucial. And so I'm going to show you about 3 or so concepts that Alabama ran, and then we're going to film. Now, I know I'm not Picasso over here, but what I want to show you is a rushing concept to get Milroe in rhythm. I think one of the most underrated things that people forget about, especially with these rushing quarterbacks, is you want to get them in a rhythm of being able to see the field correctly, anticipate, almost like a running back. You want to be able to get them into rhythm. And I think this is one of the concepts that if an NFL team is to invest their stock and be able to say, I want Jalen Milroe as a potential project player, these are the concepts that you're going to have to bake into your call sheet, because it's not going to be a situation. I don't think this would be successful for Milroe. Obviously, I don't know his personality, but you are not going to have to say, hey, Milroe, adjust to us, adjust to this offense. I think of Cliff Kingsbury with Jaden Daniels, where he sat Jaden Daniels down and said, hey, what are your 3 comfort plays? What are the 3 concepts that I can implement into this offense that when things get tough, I know this can get you back into rhythm? And I think this is one of those plays that, especially as a mobile quarterback that may be limited, not by the arm talent, but the processing, I would say that he would want one of these, just because quarterback power was something that absolutely destroyed LSU. If you remember, LSU gave up 186 yards to Jalen Milroe. You're going to want to be able to have a concept like this where you're pulling the left guard, pulling the left tackle. Everyone is just going to be shifting this way because it's quarterback power, baby. We're not even going to fake anything with the running back. Everybody's going right. And guess where Jalen Milroe is going? He's going right, baby. because it's quarterback power. And what this is going to do is overwhelm the right side of the defense. And it's just going to be money every single time if it's blocked and executed correctly. There was a lot of times when, say, like Kendrick Law, the wide receiver for Alabama, who was one of the best blocking wide receivers in the entire country, when he wasn't playing, their rushing offense wasn't as good. Also, the offensive line hadn't played as well. Obviously, this is the most simple concept you'll ever see because it's just quarterback power. He gets the ball, he runs right, and he follows his blocks. You could pull some guys. Sometimes, if you want to get a little fancy, let me erase it to my best ability. You can also implement potentially just read option. This is the running back, quarterback. Read key, it's going to be over here. Quarterback is just going to watch that guy right there. And if he crashes down, he's going to pull it and go. Time and time again, Alabama ran this to get him into rhythm. These are the small things you got to do to be able to get Milroe comfortable and in the flow of the offense. Very simple. Well, let's talk about some passing concepts, right? What did Kalen DeBoer call to get Milroe into rhythm as terms of a passer? And I think two main things I saw time and time again. And if you've watched any of my spread videos, you know exactly what I'm about to pull up, especially if we're talking about a spread offense. Mesh. Mesh is very, very simple. It's a go-to play. It can be used in a bunch of different fashions. The core of it is you get the wide receiver right here. He's going to run a drag this way. Going to go wide receiver here. Going to go do drag this way. What this right here in the middle does is if you have linebackers, say it's man coverage, you get an incidental rub. What do I mean by that? Well, technically rub routes are illegal, but if you can do it incidentally, you can manipulate the defense. Potentially a linebacker has to move out of the way. That gives a bit more space to the wide receiver, or it tends to get blocked up by zone coverage, just depending if they can communicate in the right way. Say a linebacker's in this zone, he's watching the guy. Hey, all right, can I hand it off to the next guy? Or can I move over here, hand it off to the next guy? It's a lot of communication, and it's intended to cause problems to a lot of teams that don't communicate well. Maybe there's guys that are stuck on an island, and you tend to put your fastest wide receivers here. So that's just two concepts. Then you can put a corner route right here, which tends to be the quickest and easiest first read, because you're not actually waiting for this to develop, because if you're waiting for the crossers to develop every single time, maybe it takes too long. This is the easiest first read that you can look for a quarterback. Why is it easy? Well, if they're off coverage, say they're up here, that quick out, stop the ball. All right, off coverage, get it out. Simple. It's just an easy, quick out. If it's man coverage, you know that this is going to happen over the middle, and potentially you get an easy rub, boom, 15-yard gain. So why is this easy for Milroe though? Because you understand from the terms of a spread offense, heck, we can even, if we want to, put the running back out on a wheel route. We can do a lot of different things with the running back. That tends to get into the rail concepts, and you'll see that on film. I think I've pulled one of those where the running back goes out on a wheel route, they're running mesh, and communication down the field, Justice Haynes catches the football. But for Milroe, why is this simple? Well, for him, he's not really having to read too much. You're watching that corner, that right here, you're watching what's happening right here. All right, that's your first read. It's clogged up, cool. Now we're going to crossers. If this is getting blocked up, then Milroe's running the football. It's 1, 2, get going. It's very simple for him, and it's not something where he's having to go to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Sure, you could do 2 and 3, but usually if his eyes are going to be towards here and he's facing right here, he's going to be waiting for him right here over the middle to get open. And by that second read, Milroe tends to go. He tends to, all right, I'm about to run. And so that's one of the easier concepts that you're going to see time and time again, is you're going to watch the Alabama players just cross over the middle. They're going to cross once again, and it's just going to keep things in rhythm. Now, one of the biggest problems was if he got to 2 or to 3, and the line started to collapse, and these edge defenders were able to block him in, and Milroe tried to go through the gaps. It was very easy to kind of contain, right? So like if this guy didn't get open and these start to get clogged up and he's trying to figure out what to make a play, if you're able to hold the edges and not let Milroe go to the outside, he wasn't the best at going through the middle. Lots of times the big plays he made in terms of rushing were designed plays. There wasn't a lot of times where he was able to make a play outside of a passing concept. It wasn't popping off the film. A lot of the best and most successful plays he had were designed runs, like quarterback power, like we showed. And then the last one, to just get a completion, to get things easy, there's a couple different options. Now, I'm going to split this down in half for you to see. This is a completely different play. This is going to be a completely different play. Because there's two simple concepts that Jalen Milroe was given to be able to get into rhythm. A lot of it was bubble screens, being able to just drop back behind the line of scrimmage, and this guy would block. Problem is, one of the most egregious picks was a missed block, I believe, by Kobe Prentice. Corner comes in and crashes, and it's a pick 6. But you'll see a lot of bubble screens, a lot of quick screens, get the ball out, make Milroe's life easier. Reason why I pointed out is screens are easy. Running mesh is easy. These are easy concepts to run. They're not long developing plays downfield where you're going 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. They're very much, all right, watch the corner, get it out, drag route. All right, bubble screen, get the ball out. And sometimes it became robotic to the example where he made the throw super late and the corner crashed down. I'll show you later. Now let's go to the other side. Hitches, baby. Hitches. We're going up, turning around, throw the football. Problem is, Milroe, he would wait, receiver turned around, now the ball is getting out. When you're throwing a hitch, right as he is about to break and turn around, that ball should already be in the air. And he was doing a very good job of it earlier into the year, but it still needs to get a lot faster. Everything, the processing has to get a lot faster for Milroe. And so that's why we're going to dive into the film and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go through some actual game film and not just talking about the qualities and the concepts. So we're looking at Oklahoma versus Alabama here. Brent Venables versus Jalen Milroe. What Venables does so well is disguising coverages. What we're looking at right here is 3rd and 15 for Alabama early into the game. They're not going to run the ball in this situation. They could, they're not going to. And what we're looking at is potentially cover 4, which would be dropping all 4 of these players into the deep coverage, causing this giant blanket. Usually, you're going to throw the ball underneath because there's just not going to be enough guys that could cover any of the underneath throws, but it works to the defense's favor because as long as you make the tackle, it's going to be behind the line that you're wanting to get to for the first down. But you could also get the potential of, cover 3, which would be dropping, I believe that's Bowman into the box, and then he drops back into the deep area of the field. He's going to drop back to the deep area. He's going to drop back. And so right here where the SEC logo is and the other logo are the seams, and that's where you're going to look for in cover 3. Those are the main 2 options I would project to happen, including as well as the defensive line is overloading that right side of the field. So they're going to try to get Milroe to come all the way to the left side. He's a righty. It's a cardinal sin to throw a cross body, especially if you're going the opposite direction of your throwing motion. If he was a lefty, you just inverse the defensive line. And what's so crazy about it, because that sounds simple, but you're watching the safeties. What happens when both of them crash down? Is it a blitz? Am I missing something? Well, this play's actually cover 3, but he is the deep 3rd. Now, what's intended is to really make Jalen Milroe overthink this, and maybe he forces a ball in a direction that wasn't expected. Corner makes a play. The big area of concern that Milroe was able to decipher was it was cover 3. I'm going to look for the seam shot for this wide receiver right here. and he's not going to be able to get to it in time because his goal is to drop back and then make a play left or right. Problem is the distance that he has to drop back as well as pivoting from this spot right here is a really difficult play to make. And Milroe's able to process it in time. Sure, is this ball is going to be perfect? No, this ball is not going to be perfect, but he realizes it. This is where he's going to try to fit it, is where you see my cursor. And it's an insane throw to make. It's just an insane throw to make. We could go back a little bit. I got to give so much credit because you see right here, these two drop back and he's going to keep going. So right now we're looking at cover 3. Find the opening. Just find the opening and you're going to make a play. Let me give you an example of mesh real quick. Right here, you're going to watch this outside wide receiver. He's going to go on a crossing route. Then you're going to watch the tight end go on a crossing route. And then you're going to see a bunch of confusion for the linebackers. And even when Milroe throws this deep crossing route to Ryan Williams, if Williams was covered, number 18's wide open for at least a 20-30 yard gain. This was a staple of the Alabama offense, and it's super simple to run. And when you catch them in man coverage, it could be super dangerous. The problem and the reason why I'm showing you it is the crosser that's being thrown was on the money. It was in rhythm. Ryan Williams caught it in stride. Milroe needs to do that every single time, and he does not do it every single time. And that would be something that if I'm an OC that's about to draft him, I need him to make this his bread and butter in order to feel comfortable with dropping back and expecting him to make the right read. Right here, you could see the confusion over the middle because of the man coverage. He would have been open. I know the linebacker ends up jumping, but it's because Milroe is making the decision to throw, and it's on the money. Nothing more I could ask for in terms of what Milroe's going to do. I believe this one gets called back because he stepped out of bounds. But in terms of what I want from Jalen Milroe, I want this every single time. It's not a difficult play. It's not very hard to decipher. You have a bunch of people at the defensive line, but just make the easy throw in rhythm, in stride every single time. You'll see later in the Tennessee video, virtually the same thing happens wide over the head of the wide receiver. Now let's talk about one of the picks. And this one is partially on Milroe. I would put a lot of the blame on the wide receiver. This corner right here is just going to absolutely wreck the play. And because it's a screen pass, he comes down, there's supposed to be a block. And if you don't make the block, Milroe is telegraphing this. There's nowhere else the ball is going to go. Now, partially the blame on Milroe is you want him to not throw this ball if he sees it get blown up. But you'll see right here, number 6 completely misses the block. And Milroe's already thrown the football. And this is just going to be an easy pick because of that bad of a missed block. You just can't do that. I mean, yes, we could put blame on Milroe, but I'm looking at number 6 in this situation. You got to make that block, because if you don't, where else is the football going to go? There's no other routes on the field. Right here, he's making the decision to throw it robotically as he's being told to. And if you don't make the block, it's a pick. Now let's talk about the pick that's bad. The one that is on Jalen Milroe. The problem with him on this pick is he is telegraphing that this ball is only going to this side of the field. He's not even going to look at these two players the entire snap, the entire play. And he's going to be staring down this player right here who's going to come down on a button hook. And this linebacker is just going to watch him. He's literally just going to follow down the line until the ball is thrown, and then it's a pick 6. Just watch the helmet right here and where he is looking at, because it's just going to be in this direction the whole time. I think this is one of his worst picks during his time at Alabama. You just can't do that, man. You just can't make that throw. We'll watch it in the other angle where you see, there goes the lights, but you'll watch his helmet. He's not looking to that left side. It immediately goes to the right. He telegraphs that. The linebacker's watching his eyes. That's exactly what you're supposed to do as a linebacker. You can't do that as a quarterback. Now let's pivot to the South Carolina game. And I think this was very much an up and down game for Jalen Milroe in terms of processing. Now this play though got me out of my chair. because it's so impressive when you're on this right hash, or hell, the left hash, and you're able to throw the football to the opposite side of the field. I will get up out of my chair and be appalled, because right here, he's making the decision on time. As soon as the wide receiver breaks, he's throwing this football. He's on the opposite hash, and it's going to be on the money. Milroe, please, for the love of everything good on this planet, do more of this. Like, I'm not kidding. Got me out of my chair, because that's something you didn't see from him, honestly, was now making the decision to when he's going to throw this football. As soon as it breaks, he could have thrown it earlier, but he's pulling it right then and there. It could have been a little bit more on timing. I'm being a little nitpicky, but that was a beautiful throw to make. So here's an example of Milroe and the inconsistency in some of his pocket presence. And what do I mean by pocket presence? I just mean being able to step up into the right spots, stay in the pocket, and not be someone that's always trying to scramble to the outside. I've noticed a lot where his big time rushing plays are just more designed runs. I've mentioned it before. And when we're looking at this specifically, you're going to see an opening where he could have stepped up and instead tries to bounce it to the outside, making a play with his legs. And what concerns me the most as I watch this film is the negative plays he makes are like cardinal sins of the NFL: sacks and turnovers. And as a young quarterback, you cannot afford doing that. You can't be in those 3rd and 15 situations. You're not going to get a seam shot every single time. The coach is going to call a halfback draw. He's not going to try to push the ball downfield. And those are just a really bad recipe, especially if he doesn't go to a situation that tries to get him into rhythm and more tries to get him acclimated to their system versus acclimating to his skill sets, is what concerns me a lot when we're talking about Milroe. Because as we take a look here, drops back, and right here, there's pressure, but he's going to immediately roll to the right where this defender right here is crashing down, when he could just take a small step right here. I mean, it's not like maybe he takes the pivot right here, but he is telegraphing with that first step that he is wanting to go to the right side. And what happens? Tries to pump fake, and then that's intentional grounding. I'd be shocked if that wasn't called intentional grounding. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's just a bad play. That's just a bad play. You can't do that. You have to step up in the pocket. So we're looking at a 3rd and 18, and I think this is a perfect example of him waiting till a player gets open. You're going to watch on the left side, there's going to be 2 layers of dig routes, or in whatever you want to call it. And because he's sitting there and waiting till someone gets open, I get it. It's 3rd and 18. You want to make a play. It's a tough game going against an SEC opponent, but a turnover, this is not an arm punt situation where he's throwing the ball 60 yards down the field and he's trying to just make a play. This is a bad ball to make. This is doing the 2 worst things you could do, which is staring down a receiver and waiting till they get open and waiting till the last minute to make this throw. Go watch, I believe it's Dupree in motion. He drops back. Right here, there's not a lot going on. Maybe with his arm talent, by the time the receiver broke over the middle, if you were able to make this ball on a frozen rope, maybe. I wouldn't make that throw. I'd probably throw it away and punt the ball, because he's going to be covered over the middle because he's dropped in. And your only window of opportunity is right here, because he's going to pick him up, and this safety is watching this post route over the middle. And maybe at that point, you just go to your check down and call it a day, even though it's probably going to be stuffed. South Carolina did a great job here. But instead, he has not decided to throw this football yet. He's going to try to fit it into the window now. The release is quick. It's a terrible ball. It's a terrible ball. You just cannot do that. Not in the SEC, but you can't do it at the NFL level. So what we're going to see here is another mesh concept. You're going to see, I believe it's Jam Miller come out on a wheel route. You're going to see the 2 crossers over the middle, and Ryan Williams is going to try to find a soft spot right around here. And what I got to credit Milroe for is specifically on this play, whether he intended to do it or not, shows up on film, is leading Williams to the soft spot of the zone. He's open, but not as open, and not trying to give him a hospital ball. And so let's go ahead and watch through it real quick. You'll see right here, it's just simple mesh. Got some crossing routes. There's the corner route. There's the wheel route. And Williams is right here. He's in a trifecta of 3 defenders. Milroe is like, okay, I could see the opening right here if I could just fit the ball there. And it's a beauty. It's a beauty. So we're going to change to the Tennessee game. And I want you to be able to understand. I hope that these at least are showing you what I'm talking about in terms of the processing's not there. Honestly, I don't even think it's the decisions that are that bad. I think things need to be sped up. Yeah, there's some bad decisions like any quarterback, but he needs things to go quicker. He needs to be able to process things faster, because I think that would mitigate a lot of the problems with the sacks and the picks. Now, this is a play that got me out of my chair for all the wrong reasons. You know what? I could decipher it. Just watch number 5. Watch number 5. I'm gonna lean back in my chair. Just watch number 5. This ball has to be out. He has the arm talent to make this throw. No pressure in the pocket. Here. He even's got his hands up. This ball has to get out. That is a touchdown. Alabama, you move on. He holds on to it. He pump fakes. He realizes he's missed the opportunity, because at this point, everyone's crashing to go get the open guy. And so he sees Haynes right here on the bottom left of your screen, pump fakes, ends up throwing it, and it's overthrown. That play, to this day, still boggles me. And you can see he looks antsy in the pocket. He's hesitating in everything he is doing. You can't do that. Got to get him comfortable, man. And I understand there's been a lot of negative plays here. I don't deny that. If you want to go see the super positive rushing plays, just go look at the highlights of LSU. Go look at a ton of the other plays. I'm focusing on the passing plays, because that's what needs to be developed. I'm not worried about Jalen Milroe as a rusher. I'm not worried about his ability to read a defense in terms of just having the ball in his hands and going to make a play. I'm worried about the processing when he's trying to throw the football. That's what I wanted to represent. But I hope you also could see the silver lining in the arm talent. Some of the flashy plays he's able to make. This is just 3 games out of the course of 2 years of tape that we have. But you'll see these problems across the board. That's why I am just low on this quarterback class, guys. As we do this series, you're going to just see across the board, I'm low on these guys. I have Milroe as a 3rd, 4th round pick. I think Malik Willis is a fair way of putting him as in terms of comp. Real high upside. Malik Willis has upside. Has he been able to put it together as a starting quarterback? Not up to this point. And I think the thing that concerns me the most with Milroe is, will a team, alter their offense to his skill sets, or will they see him as someone that needs to adapt to them? And can they get comfortable with what his skill set is in the early stages of his career? And I'm not sure about that. I went into the film a little worried. I left it even more worried. It's not to say I don't think Milroe could work out well. You'll see in my rankings, I'm still high on him, because at the end of the day, that rushing talent is going to uplift your rushing offense as a whole. And he still has incredible arm talent. And these are fixable things. Let's be clear on that. Processing and timing is fixable. The accuracy issues can be tweaked a little bit, but the processing would do wonders for him. If he was making the right decision on time, but just missing the throw, I would be less worried, because then you're just focused on accuracy. But now you're pulling at 2 strings. And so he needs to be able to be comfortable and process. And I think there's going to be a major learning curve for him at the next level. But with that being said, thank you so much for taking the time to watch Rush the Field. If you guys would just take a moment and leave a comment, a like, a subscribe, it would mean the world to me. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. And I just love doing content for you guys. And I'm working so hard to try to get content out for you, and I appreciate the patience so much. So I will see you guys next time.